Hey folks, and welcome back to Glenn and Adrian's Rock Talk. That's Adrian.
And that's Glenn.
And today we are going to take a look at a requested new group called Leonid and Friends. It's actually not a new group per se, but it's new to us on this channel. Leonid and Friends is actually well known as a tribute act for the band Chicago, among many other things. They have actually met most of the members of Chicago and Danny Serafine, who unfortunately isn't in the band anymore, but was a founding member, an incredibly important founding member. They're fans of this band. Today we're going to look at a request that is actually an original composition called The Speck of Dust. Now they're doing this with some backing from an orchestra or pieces of an orchestra. Okay, so there's a pretty good ensemble up here. There's at least trumpet, trombone, tenor sax. Of course, you would find that in the Chicago configuration. But there's also special guests. Various musicians from a symphony orchestra and a conductor. Somebody came in to record it. Overtone singing. Overtone singing, when I hear the word overtone singing, I think of Paul Pina. And I think of Tuvan throat singing. You know, where the monks would go, they do something like, yeah, and they're trying to get the harmonics, you know, and it's tricky. It's very tricky. Paul Pina's the guy that wrote Jet Airliner, the big Steve Miller hit in the 70s. He also made a couple of great albums that were mostly overlooked, unfortunately, but had some wonderful material on them. But he was also known later on as Earthquake Pina, because he got into Tuvan throat singing. He went to Tuva, which is in the middle of Asia, and got into a competition there with all the locals, and he won the competition. So there's a great movie about this called Genghis Blues, if you haven't seen it. But anyway, that's what I'm thinking of. So I'm not sure yet, but whenever somebody says overtone singing, that's the first thing I think of. They've had a lot of success. And they are well recognized. And frankly, I'd like to take a look at a Chicago song or two that they did as well. But for now, we're going to take a look at this original composition and see what we think. So, Adrian, any thoughts ahead before we look at this?
Tuvan throat singing. I guess I better get ready for that. Be ready for anything.
Yeah. Well, we generally are on this channel anyway. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Let's go ahead and check this out, and we will discuss afterwards. Wow. Okay, Adrian, thoughts?
Well, Leonid has a lot of friends.
Yes, he does. Yes, he does.
Band ensemble and an orchestra. The lead singer has a great voice, too.
Yeah, she's good.
Just a lot of perfect musicianship, and lots of it.
Yeah, so Ksenia Busina is the name of the lead vocalist. Some of these names may be a little tricky. I think a lot of them are, it's a Russian-based band, but it sounded like they also recorded in Kiev, like Moscow and Kiev, it said there, which is part of Ukraine. It looked to me, I was trying to figure out if it was an entirely live performance, and I guess it wasn't necessarily, but it was pretty close to it. I mean, that whole orchestra and all the people in there in that room were performing live. I mean, that was the vast majority of the song. The overtones could have been live as well and in an isolation booth. You know, it's possible that you need to be isolated from musicians like that if you're trying to do those harmonics, you know, that you get in your voice. So that's a possibility.
It sounds like a didgeridoo, that overtone singing.
Yeah, it really does. And it's kind of a similar concept, I think, but just, in your throat instead of in a big tube like that. It looks like they lost one of their team members from Leonid. Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Enjoy the moment, folks. Enjoy every sandwich, as Warren Zevon used to say. It's all about now, enjoying what you're doing right now. A project like this, he should be proud of the music. Apparently, he composed the music for this particular piece. And then the lyrics were added by Leonid and Roman Vorobiev.
Well, what did you think about the orchestral part? It's pretty well composed, I thought.
I thought so. You know what? I was really impressed. I mean, yes, the arrangement was really good. But one more simple thing that I was impressed by was how many people in there were wearing headphones. I have never seen so many people wearing headphones during a live session in my life. I mean, there had to be 36 sets of headphones in there. Can you imagine having a studio? Okay, we need 36 ins for headphones. Like, what? Hold on, I got to make an order, But that, yeah. No, I think they were sensational, and I have heard similar things. As a matter of fact, the Mahavishnu Orchestra back in, I believe, 1974 put out an album called Apocalypse, and I believe that it was conducted by Michael Tilson Thomas. I'd better look this up before I continue making these claims.
Michael Tilson Thomas is pretty famous.
It was a great album. It was also produced by George Martin, the Beatles producer.
Wow.
And it's a great album. Yes, Apocalypse came out March 1974, produced by George Martin, who regarded it as one of the best records he ever made. Okay. Wow. So not bad at all. And it was a similar amalgamation of essentially jazz fusion and orchestral parts. And yes, Michael Tilson Thomas was part of that project. Pretty amazing. Oh, also Jeffrey Emmerich, who engineered Sgt. Pepper, Abbey Road, Revolver. I recommend the album. The song I really like on it is Smile of the Beyond, the last song on side 1, Smile of the Beyond. Anyway, that's what it reminded me of. And really, this whole piece gave me a vibe of kind of the early mid-70s, especially mid-70s, I guess I would say. But a good one. And yeah, that was overtone singing. That was very similar to the tube and throat singing, pretty much the same universe. So you have to be adventurous to include that. And I think it did work. You're right. It sounded like a didgeridoo. So worked out pretty well. All right, folks. So why don't you let us know what you thought of this piece, and let us know if you're familiar with the band, if you've ever heard anything else that they did. I definitely want to check out some of the Chicago that they did, because they are well regarded for that, and I love the old Chicago. Looks like they've got some old stuff in there. But if you have other things you might suggest to us, let us know, okay, in the comments below. Of course, leave your thoughts on any of this. It was such a rich production coming from all different directions that I'm sure there's plenty that we didn't touch on that we could have. So please do so. And if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. And if you enjoyed our presentation, please subscribe. All right. Don't forget, we have a second channel now, Modern Rock Talk, where we put interview requests, reviews, reactions, that sort of thing. And I may even do some interviews of my own over there at some point. But if you haven't seen it, go check it out. Thanks so much for joining us on this today, and we'll catch you on the next one. All right. Take care, folks.
See y'all later.